Hello there, this is Valerie White Williams with Vocal Splendor Studios. And I am a voice teacher and a vocal coach, and I teach online voice and piano all over the world using Zoom, FaceTime, and Skype. So if you're interested in getting some lessons, please go to my website at vocalsplendor.com. But as for today, I am doing something completely brand new. It's actually not brand new to me, but it's brand new for you guys because I want to share another side of me beside the voice teacher and vocal coach. I have also been a lifelong astrologer. I started studying astrology when I was just a wee teenager. I think it's because my chart is pretty extreme and I knew that I really resonated with my sun sign, and so it brought me to study astrology for years and years. So this is my debut of being and doing an astrology reading, and I've been searching for who I should profile as I debut my astrology readings, and I found the perfect person, and that is Michael Jackson. And I'm very pleased to have found him. I really wanted to start with BTS, but with BTS, they do not have birth times, and birth times are really pretty critical for really making a complete chart. And however, the other thing with Michael Jackson is the birth time that I have decided upon is in somewhat of a debate. So there are multiple times with Michael Jackson, and supposedly the time that I have chosen or I have found from my research is the one that his own astrologer used, is this birth time. So the thing about the birth time is it is creating a map of where the stars were when you were born. So let's get into Michael Jackson's astrology chart. So here we go. All right, so I have put his chart up on the screen, and I'm going to be circling and doing some editing as I go. So this is an experiment for me, and I have a copy right here that I'm going to read from. I got this beautiful chart from the website astro_charts.com, and there are plenty of places for you guys to get free astrology charts, or you can look at celebrity charts, but I really like them because they're pretty. I like the pretty site. So let's just talk really briefly about what you see in this chart. So what happens is when you were born, that sets your what we call ascendant or rising sign. So basically that's where the horizon was when you were born. So if you were born like I was in the middle of the day, my sun at the top of the chart. If you were born at midnight, you're going to be approximately down at the bottom of the chart, and all the planets are going to stack up around this circle, the house wheel. And the house wheel represents the different stages in your life. I kind of look at it, if you're going to be in a play or a movie, you have a movie set, and that set could be career set. And then you have actors in that set, and those actors are playing characters. So that's a really good way of looking at the astrology chart. Yes, we have energy and it tells a story throughout the wheel, but there are going to be some aspects of life that are going to be more prominent. So let's get into it. I also am going to be sharing some of the information I learned from Connie Kaplan. And Connie Kaplan is what I would call an American mystic. And she studied with Carlos Castaneda, and she has this entire system of going deeper into the astrology chart using the degrees. And I'm super happy to share that with you. And I'm going to share all the links below where to get the astrology chart and also learn more information about Connie's system, because I've been studying with her for a couple years and I'm really excited to share what I've learned. So let's start with Michael's chart. So I'm going to start with what we call, or Connie calls, the personal trilogy, which is the sun and the moon and the midheaven. So let's talk about the sun first. You can see his sun is all the way on the horizon on the other side in what we call the 7th house. And his sun was in Virgo. And Virgo is fixed earth. And Virgos are known to be perfectionists and workaholics. They're the ones that want everything right. Virgo is a sign of the harvest, sorting, putting things together. So really doing a really good job, very conscientious. And it is in the sign of Virgo, and it is at 6 degrees. So with Connie's system, 6 degrees represents regeneration, which is an affinity of the plants and the beings and understanding how plants renew all the time. And it's somebody who has regeneration in the sun is constantly renewing themselves. They're constantly doing new things, putting new things out, which is definitely Michael, because he was a workaholic and he totally was always recreating things, constantly, never stayed stagnant, always doing new things. And it is in right on what we call the descendant, right on the other side of the ascendant. So this is where he worked a lot with people. He was focused on relationships and making, business relationships. So the 7th house, he's right on the cusp, right between the 6th and the 7th house. That is involved with partnerships, working with partnerships. Now, if you notice, you see a whole stellium is what we call of planets right there. They stack up from the Sun, Pluto, Mercury, Virgo, and Chiron. I think I'm saying that right. The wound and healer. All of that was pretty much in Virgo. So Virgo was a huge placement for him. So the sun is your personal gift to the world. So regeneration is completely reinventing yourself and encouraging others to do that as well. Always fresh, always new, and very nurturing. There's a nurturing side to that regeneration, and the Virgo perfectionism, you can see that quite frankly in all of his work. So let's move on to the moon. Now look at the moon. He was born pretty close to a full moon, which is what we just had last night. So maybe it's telling that I do this video today. And his moon is in the sign of Pisces, which is the opposite sign of Virgo. And Pisces is also a mutable sign. It's mutable, and mutable energy means moving things around. So the mutable energy shifts things around and prepares for the next cycle. So we have Virgo, which is also mutable, and we also have Pisces. Now Pisces is mutable water. And so it's very mystical. It's very connected to the divine source. The sign for Pisces is fish in the ocean. So we're all one in this cosmic sea. And his moon is in the 1st house. The 1st house is the house of self-expression. And I think the moon represents more public arena than the sun, because sun is personal, but the moon is your mastery, what you know. And so that moon in the 1st house made him extremely magnetic. Everybody was attracted to him. And that Pisces energy brought him this spiritual vibration and mystical vibration and very creative. So those are all things that Pisces does. And in the 1st house, it's completely in his self-expression, that very beautiful creativity and very beautiful heart, of loving humanity comes from that as well. And that's really tied to his ascendant. So it's really key to how he represents himself. And then the third thing, oops, I forgot, let's talk about the degree. So the degree of the moon with this time is 14 degrees. And according to Connie's system, that is the sign of ecstasy. And ecstasy is the quality of tuning into that divine spark that created the universe. Ecstasy represents that just, I'm alive in this beautiful moment and I am this huge spark of energy. So that's really powerful. And I think that's what you see when you see him perform. He's always in the moment, just channeling all this divine energy in a beautiful way. And so that really resonates. When I first saw this chart and this particular time, which I think is the most valid, now I could be wrong, this really resonated with me, and seeing Michael, because he expressed so much energy when he performed, and he had such a big heart. And when he was performing, he was just dialing in all that great cosmic energy just through him, through the universe and through him. And every time I've seen him perform live, you see this intense focus. He's completely channeling this beautiful, joyous, spiritual energy. Okay, so let's go down to the third thing in the trilogy, is the midheaven. Now the midheaven is what's on the very top of the chart. So it's right there. It kind of makes the crossover. Midheaven is typically considered your career house. It's associated to the 10th house of the father. It's the discipline. It's how you're seen in the world. It's also, from Connie's system, where you come from. It's your soul family, where you come from, because you are here to represent the quality and the degree of the midhaven. And the midhaven for him is 19 degrees Sagittarius. So 19 degrees is the sign of service, someone who is in service to humanity. I really think that also represents Michael, because he had a painful life. It wasn't easy for him. He struggled through so many challenges on so many levels, yet he continued to perform and make music for people. Even when the labels kind of were trying to throw him under the bus, he continued to travel the world and see people and have that spiritual fire. So there's where that fire comes from, and to wake people up. It's kind of, Sagittarius is more mutable energy, so there's a lot of mutable here. It's mutable fire, and mutable fire tends to be like the minister that's going to save us and inspire people. And so that inspiration from the world. So that is the trinity of where he's coming from. So let's go on to some more of what we call the personal pillars, his personality. So let's look at, first, we're going to look at Mars. That's the way Connie looks at it, because our body personality is through the personal planets, which is Mars, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, Mercury, Venus. Yeah, that's it. Okay, and the ascendant. That's right. That makes up the body personality. What she calls that is your delivery system. You've come here to show these gifts and manifest the gifts of your sign and your placements, and the delivery system is how you deliver the gifts. So the first gift I'm going to look at is Mars. Mars is the body principle. It's being in the body, and it represents your physicality. And his Mars is in Taurus. So we have a fixed sign, and the sign is 22 degrees. And it is in the second house. So I find this really interesting. And when you look at his chart, you can see there's a lot of energy coming down into that Mars. When you look at the charts, you can see where there's a glom of energy, where it's kind of like a bunch of stuff going on, things that are all over. And then that Mars is at the bottom in the second house. Now let's just talk about first, the sign of Mars is in Taurus. Taurus is fixed earth. All right, that is probably one of the most stubborn placements you can have. It's very strong. You can't really move it. It's stubborn. He has a lot of tenacity. It's also in the second house, and the second house is the possessions and building business and building an empire and physicality. So I find also this rings really true. Because Michael, when he performed, his physicality was a great part of his appeal, and his dancing and his presence was rooted and strong. Also, he was an amazing businessman. He built his empire to the point where the record companies were threatened, because he used his massive wealth to buy the royalties of the Beatles catalog. So he pushed a lot of buttons because he did it his way, and he built his empire, and he was very clear. Tauruses move slow, but they move steady, and it's very strong. So you can see that physicality and that wealth building very clearly in that second house placement with Mars. And also the sign of it is 22 degrees, and 22 degrees is the sign of the dreamer, bringing things from the void. So he was able to sense that, and his dancing and his art represented that dream of what life could be. And so much of his music represents that. So I find this really, really fascinating. Okay, let's move on to Venus, the Venus principle. Venus principle is the feminine side, some traditional astrologies call that, but also his emotional body, how he relates emotionally. So traditional astrology looks at the Mars as your male side and the Venus as the female side, but I think it makes more sense to look at the body and the emotions, because we're a mixture of all these things. And his Venus is in Leo. It's another fixed sign, and it's in the sign, the degree of 17, which is attraction. And his Venus is again in that stellium, kind of right there next to all that Virgo, and it's in that 6th house again. So tons of placements in the 6th house. The 6th house represents your health and your workaday habits and how you structure the work that you have to do in life, which is health, nutrition, your organizational skills. So this full house in the 6th house is Michael was a workaholic in a good way, a perfectionist workaholic, and he was always working on things constantly. So let's look at the degree. So it is Leo, it's fixed Leo, and Leo is a sign of fixed fire. So it's very steady. Leo is a sign of the sun, which means it rains on everybody. So this tells me that Michael loved to give gifts to people. He loved to provide, let his wealth be something that he could share. And like we've heard, is that he spent a lot of time visiting other countries, bringing people to Neverland, and he was really into, I think that word is philanthropy. I think I'm saying that correctly. So that really ties into that Venus in Leo, is wanting to share his work with others and share the love. And the 17 represents attraction, which is bridging to other people. So he was a bridge builder to other people that were different than him. And that's one of the things about Michael too, is he was the first African-American artist that placed really highly on MTV. He bashed through so many limits that other artists hadn't done. So he really pushed through to create a new work for other artists to pull through. So let's now look at Mercury. So Mercury represents the mental body, how you think, how you process, how the mind interacts with everything. His Mercury is in Leo, again, another fixed fire, and it's the sign of 25 degrees, and it's right there in that stellium with all that Virgo and all that late Leo. So again, fixed fire, using that energy to share and let everybody else. But there's also a sense of Leo, they want to be recognized and seen as well, because there's a bit of, I don't want to say vanity, but Leos like appreciation. They like to be honored as far as how they take care of others. And so I think that was something he really enjoyed, to serve and share others. And the degree is 25 degrees. 25 degrees represents desire. And that can represent the desire for things, to accumulate things, but it also represents the desire for the divine. That's the deeper mission of it, is always looking deeper, always striving to become closer to a divine presence. And that music, that theme was throughout his music. He wrote about a lot of things, but one of the most beloved times is how we can use music to become closer to each other and to become closer to our divine essence. So let's get started and talk about the ascendant. So the ascendant is when the horizon line was when you were born, and the ascendant has to do with your persona, your personality, how you come across to other people, and kind of your ethical view of how to live in this life, kind of like your shell, I guess, but it's really you too. And his ascendant is also in Pisces. So we have the double Pisces of the ascendant and the moon together. Again, sensitive, mystical, artistic, altruistic. These are all things that I think Michael demonstrated his love for humanity and sharing his talents in a bigger arena. And his ascendant is in 10 degrees. 10 degrees represents reciprocity. And reciprocity, people who have the principle of reciprocity are involved as diplomats. They are people that understand the law of karma, of things giving and receiving. And they are people that are able to operate in all sorts of places and areas because they give and receive. And they understand that life is giving and receiving. So here you see this person who has this beautiful artistic talents to share with the world. He's a perfectionist, and he's committed to bringing healing and balance in his life. And sometimes, his earlier life was challenged. He grew up in bars. His dad was a real taskmaster, yet he has come here to bring peace and healing and reciprocity, bringing things together. So let's go now to what we call the universal principles. They are actually the outer planets, and they don't have as much impact on the personality, but they are kind of like a background noise that supports you and connects you to your cosmic self. So we're going to start with Neptune. And Neptune is in Scorpio. And Neptune, all these outer planets tend to affect a generation. So the people that were born at the same time are going to have very often the same principles and the same planets and signs as you do. So Neptune is in Scorpio, and Scorpio is another fixed sign. It's fixed water. And it is a sign, Neptune deals with our mystical connection, our depth. And Neptune is in in the 8th house. So the 8th house is the house of secrets. It's the house of death and rebirth. It's the house of taxes, other people's money. It's kind of the creepy house. So his Neptune there brings him a deep understanding of humanity and the depths of the soul. It's a very deep house. And that mystical side, also bringing out healing and death and rebirth. So it's a very, I want to say kind of angsty, but it's very deep, and a deep passion and mysticism, and very close to his Jupiter as well, and the North Node. They're all kind of clumped together up there, up in the 8th and the 7th house. So very much a passion to bring healing in that house and expose secrets. That's the other thing, is the 8th house. There's actually some double scorpionic energy there, because the 8th represents Scorpio. So the signs of the houses and the signs kind of correlate. And Neptune is in the sign of Scorpio, and the 8th house correlates with Scorpio. So there are some secrets that he was trying to expose. And there might be different ways to look at that, but I think that background of that mysticism and exposing the darkness, I think, comes to play in some of his music as well. So next we're going to look at Saturn. So Saturn is the planet we think of karma. Saturn is the taskmaster. And in Connie's system, Saturn is the planet that helps us see time. Because time is an illusion, but we're in this reality where Saturn is controlling things. We have this time factor. And his Saturn is also in Sagittarius. We've seen that again. So another Sagittarius, mutable fire. And it is in the degree of 19, which is again service. So this is another sign that we see again and again, or the principles of the 19 service, serving others, serving humanity. And his Saturn, this is very interesting, is right next to his midheaven, which is his career focus. So that Saturn, that drive to build, Saturn sometimes is associated with the father. And definitely his father was a huge impact in bringing the whole Jackson 5 to life. So that Saturn principle is hugely powerful in his ascendancy to stardom and the hard work and discipline that involves. And Saturn is in 19, like I said. So it's another significant pattern with exactly that. So his ascendant, his midheaven, is also 19, and his Saturn is in 19. So we call that a conjunction. So they're working together. So you can see that drive to be something has really made him get to that high level. And yes, and so the drive to achieve and to build is really big for him. All right, so next we're going to look at Pluto. Michael Jackson's Pluto is in Virgo, and it is in, again, the 6th house. The whole party going on in that 6th house. Pluto is a sign of regeneration, rebirth. It also deals with how we deal with our depressive interludes and how we recover, going into transformation, transforming ourselves, digging in and regenerating. So Pluto kind of corresponds with Scorpio, this intensity of death and rebirth. So Michael's Pluto is in the sign of Virgo, which is mutable earth, and it's in the 6th house, and the principle is purity. And purity is the tuned into the archetypes of the universe. It's kind of like the underpinnings of our reality, and it has to do with being the nature spirits and tuning into the underpinnings, the sacred geometry. So his renewal is, again, through the perfectionistic work, probably creating and destroying structures that he felt was right and which he wasn't finding was right, and finding the purity, the true essence of the spirit of things in his Pluto. And again, it's all coordinated with all the other Pluto party or the Virgo party and the Leo. There's a big glom of energy in the house, the 6th house. And that 6th house is in the work ethic, how you have your day-to-day life, and also relates with health and structuring the health. And again, Michael was a huge workaholic and perfectionistic, and that's what you see as he performs. Everything is completely controlled by him. And I don't mean by controlled in some bad way, but he wanted everything to be perfect and serve his audience in a very high manner. Okay, so next we're going to look at Uranus. And Uranus is the planet of instant shifts and changes. It's related to Aquarius, where Aquarius is bringing in the Aquarian age, which is coming, by the way. And the Aquarian energy is also known as very sudden shifts and changes. So Aquarius gives us that eureka moment that happens. It's going to be something unique and instantly is going to inspire a new way of thinking. So for him, he is in Leo, and these are all outer planets. Generations of people have similar placements, and his Uranus is in Leo, and it is at 13 degrees. And again, it's part of that whole glom or stellium, as we call it, of energy that's working together to work and create shifts. Now, the thing about Michael is he did create shifts in his world. He was the first African-American performer that really had success on MTV. I know that sounds like a long time ago, but that was really historic. He had a fan base that covered everybody. Everybody loved him, all races, all over the world. So that was huge for him. And just his performance style, his dancing mixed with his singing and his songwriting, combining elements of rock and R&B. No one had done that before. Prince was also doing those kinds of fusion-y things, but it was definitely really revolutionary for the time. And of course, the whole video format of MTV back in the day was very unique, very unique. So Leo is fixed fire. So again, lots of Leo in his chart, and Leo is giving that strength to everything. Yes. So the Leo in Aquarius is stable and strong, presenting unique forms and creating a sense of newness, but also stability, because that's what the Leo energy is. It's very stable because it's fixed fire. And it is part of the whole party going on in that 6th house of really creating interesting forms and unique ways of presenting his information. And it is in the degree of 13. And 13 is the degree called intelligence. And it is not really like street smarts or book smarts, but really being in tune with the cosmic mind and allowing connections to be built. And so he was quite a connector as well. All right, so I'm going to go on into Jupiter. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system, and it is considered the planet of benevolence and luck and things going your way. And it's kind of in the bridge between the personal planets and the outer planets. So, but it does offer quite a bit of information on how things flow. And so his Jupiter is in Libra. Yeah. So, and Libra is cardinal air. So initiating relationships in Libra. And Libra is very social. It engages with people. It is the one that creates relationships and taking action in creating relationships. And it is in the degree of 28. And 28 is the degree of love. Not love like I love you and we love people, but the cosmic glue of love. The glue that connects us. The blood in our veins that is, we all are red. We all are connected. Doesn't matter what color. Michael was really big on that. He loved everybody. He loved all races, all people, and he lived that. He traveled the world. And he went to war-torn countries, and he was like an ambassador of love all over the planet. And his Jupiter is in the sign of Libra, and it's in the 8th house. And the 8th house is that kind of creepy house, which is interesting because he did Thriller. But the 8th house is very mysterious, and it's the house that connects us to each other. It's related to sex and taxes and inheritances. Basically, the 8th house is what you receive, but not from the work that you do, like the 2nd house, but what comes to you. It's like passive income. So his Jupiter is in that passive income, passive accumulation. So by investing in his career, he is building this huge investments, income is coming to him, and he's able to amass this fortune, which is exactly what happened. You know, he created this huge fortune through his work and his investments, especially when he bought the rights to the Beatles catalog. And that's kind of when things started shifting for him, because he just had too much power, and then the label was kind of against that. Can't have that much power. So he lived that, and that love of sharing the love with everybody was really present with him. All right, I'm going to go through one more element, and this is a newer element that people talk about, Chiron. And Chiron is, because it's very interesting placement for him. It is in his 12th house. Chiron is called the wounded healer. So it's the place in our chart where we've experienced wounding in our life, and then we recover from that and we can help others. And what is interesting is Chiron is in the 12th house. Yes, Michael's Chiron was in the sign of Aquarius, and it is 19 degrees again in service. So that's another theme for him. And it was in the 12th house. And the 12th house is the sign of going back into the one. People with placements in the 12th house have a mystical side to them. They are in tune with the great sea of humanity, the cosmic consciousness that brings us back into the one. And for him, he is actually, his 12th house is in Aquarius, which is the Aquarian, that's where we're moving to, the Aquarian age, and it's coming sooner than later. And so his woundedness is from that spiritual place. Now, I know from his background that his family was Jehovah's Witnesses, and so perhaps there was some wounding about his connection to God and spirituality in that time period. But as he grew up and got away from his family of origin stories and created more, he definitely worked to help and heal people. And the 12th house is that magical realm, which can feel like the sea. It corresponds to Pisces because it's where we all go one in the sea, and really bringing that love vibration and that sense of we are one. We are one species. We are one planetary world. And a lot of the music he wrote, the Earth Song, Heal the World, Man in the Mirror, these are all calling us to unite as humans and heal the world. And that's the other thing they didn't like, because the power play now focuses on strife and tension. And when we are against each other, they have all the power. But Michael knew better than that. He knew that we need to work together. We are all earthlings on this planet Earth, and we are all one, but we are unique people. And so that's where his focus was always building towards. And again, he is at 19 degrees in the sign of Aquarius, and Aquarius is fixed air. And so that's the structure of humanity. It's kind of like Star Trek. We solve the problems of Earth and then we can help others. And that is where we are going. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And so 19 degrees is the sign of service. So once again, we see Michael as here to serve humanity. He had a hard life, but you know what? His vision and his message is getting stronger every day. As I've started doing reaction videos to Michael on my Vocal Splendor page, I get so many people, so much people, more Michael, more Michael, more Michael, because they can feel his energy and feel his spirit of humanitarian healing the world. That's it. He wrote the song Heal the World. So I hope you've enjoyed my first astrology reading with Michael Jackson. I apologize, it's been a little bit disjointed because I was originally going to post that to Vocal Splendor, and then I've had to make several different recordings. So I promise the next time I do another astrological reading on a singer, I will be more prepared to get it more cleared up. And yeah, I look forward to doing more astrology for you guys. All right, take care. Bye.